I'm going to tell you about the time I crashed an archaeological site in Peru. So my trip to Peru back in 2017 was just really, it was weeks long. It was really good. I might tell a couple stories about it, but I think it's important to tell you this story specifically because I was in Cusco at the time. I had visited Lima, I had visited a couple of other small towns. I was staying with a family in Sicuani, but I was in Cusco, and specifically, you go to Cusco to see Machu Picchu, right? But first, I was there with my friend. We were traveling together, and we had arrived at Cusco. We were at a hostel, and my friend was like, okay, I want to go to Machu Picchu, and for some reason I just had this feeling that I was meant to do something else when I was there. And I can't explain that feeling. I don't know if you've felt something like that before. I definitely have. And for some reason, all I knew was that I shouldn't go to Machu Picchu, which was really hard. I wanted to see Machu Picchu. It's one of the wonders of the world. It's incredible, and I plan to go back and see it someday. But for some reason, I was like, there's something else going on here that I need to do. And so I said goodbye to my friend. He went on his adventure to go to Machu Picchu, and I just had this feeling that there was something else I was supposed to do. So I went out there. I was walking through the market, and I walked a couple of blocks, and I saw the Ministerio de Cultura, which they told me was kind of like there were archaeologists in there. I don't know if they were part of that Ministry of Culture, is the translation there, or if it was mainly based on archaeology, but I was like, okay, there are archaeologists in there, and I'm in Peru. I want to see some archaeological sites. I studied archaeology in college. I don't know if you guys knew that. It was one. I'm going to tell you about the time I crashed an archaeological site in Peru. One of the things that I was studying along with theater and English. But anyway, I go into the Ministerio de Cultura. I speak Spanish. And I was just wandering around, right? And then I see the stairs, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm supposed to go up those stairs or not allowed to go up those stairs, but there's no signs or anything. So I started going up those stairs, and I went to somebody's office, and I was like, okay, here's the principle. If you're ever going to walk into somewhere, you have to just be confident. You have to have a good story, and you have to stick to it, right? I'll talk about this in other episodes of the kind of situations I've got myself in, but honestly, the things that you can do when you are actually like trying to do good and sell something, like not sell a physical thing, but like sell yourself or act or do some sort of social programming thing. I don't know if any of that makes sense. But anyway, I was like, okay, it's confidence, right? I got to just go in there like I know what I'm doing. And I walked into the office of this like pretty high-ranking archaeologist, and I was just like, hey, so sorry to bother you. I'm writing a book. And this wasn't a lie. I had planned on writing a book about my experiences, but it was a really, really good cover. I don't know why this works so often, but I said, hey, I'm writing a book. Yeah, I used this several times and it totally worked. I was like, I'm writing a book. I'm wondering if you could put me in touch with any archaeologists that are actively digging. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see an active dig site. And I was just like, yeah, I'm writing a book. I'm doing research. I don't know if you can help me, but I thought I'd just come ask. And she looks at me and she goes, you know what? I'm going to put you in contact with this guy. Yeah, he's the one you want to contact. He's the one that's kind of out in the field and talking to other people in the field. You know what? Actually, I'm going to call him. And she gets him on the phone, and I'm like, whoa. She talks to him, and as the phone is ringing, she looks at me and she's like, I'll tell him you're really famous. I don't know why she did that, but it worked for me. And she's like, hey, I have this really famous writer here. He wants to get out on a site. Can he meet with you? And the guy's just like, sure, I'll meet him tomorrow in the plaza. So boom, there I am. I'm meeting him tomorrow in the plaza. And I'm like, cool, I guess I'm supposed to do that. So I go out the next morning, I meet him in the plaza, and he's like, yeah, hey, I hear you're a famous writer. That's really great. History, culture, all of this stuff. He's like, I don't have any active digs, but I do have a friend. He's like, I have a friend who has an active dig, and you could probably go take a look at that. It's closed to the public, but you could probably get in. And I was like, okay. So he calls his friend, and he's just like, the same thing happened. It was interesting. He's calling his friend, and as it's ringing, he's like, I'll tell him you and I are really good friends. And I'm just like, why are these people doing this for me? I don't even know. But I guess it was just the confidence that I approached this stuff. And I think probably the universe wanted this to happen. But anyway, he's talking about, he's like, hey, I have this really famous writer here. He's a good friend of mine. And can he come like see a site? Can you give him a tour? And the guy's just like, yeah, of course, come down tomorrow. So I got to go out. I got to just see other things in Peru the rest of that day. And as I was seeing these things in Peru, I made a friend with somebody from Germany and a geologist from Chile, and I was like, hey, you should come with me to this site tomorrow. So they all came with me, and we just went there. And we got to go to this site called Piquillacta, which kind of means city of the flea. It wasn't the original Incan name, but it was the name that they gave it. So anyway, we go there. The archaeologists find us. It's totally closed down. Totally a closed down site that nobody can visit. And he's like, oh, come with me. He gave us like 2-hour-long tour. Just the head archaeologist for 2 hours was telling us, we think this, we think that, we found this. You know, we found this burial with a staff, which reminds us of the founding legend of the Inca, that where the staff sunk into the ground is where they built their capital city. And he actually told us a story that like this may have been an original capital city even before Cusco was. Now I haven't done a deep dive into that, that's just what that archaeologist told me on the site, but he told me all these interesting things, like this was probably a city of like sorcerers, you know, people that, he called it witches, people that like you came to get certain things done in Inca culture. Like it was a spiritual center rather than a metropolitan one. And he said that the walls that were 30 feet tall were made to kind of be imposing, to get you in this psychological state as you came into the city. And there were burials on the wall, you know, bodies that were preserved, and telling us all this really, really interesting stuff. And it was all because I just decided to go forward and figure this stuff out. Now, a lot of my adventures have been that way, and it hasn't always worked, but you would be surprised at the sort of stuff you could do with just confidence and a spirit of exploration and curiosity. So anyway, that was my story for today. I will include some of the footage from that. It was a really fun adventure. Really, I was studying archaeology at the time, and it really sparked some of this stuff, and I'll go more in depth in some of the archaeology in more of my explaining videos. I don't even know what to call them. But yeah, that was part 1 for Peru, and thanks for listening, and I'm Levi, and this is Outlandish.